The most important thing is not to give up, and always look ahead. There's always a new opportunity. There's always a new day, and you can do better tomorrow.
What gives us our edge? And how do we go beyond it? How thin is the line between taking part and tipping into victory? What inspires those moments of rare advantage, down to the millimetre, down to the microsecond, that change the shape of a race? Is it faith, talent, focus, or sheer determination? Are winners born or made? And what happens when things go wrong, or when it all goes right? Welcome to The Edge. We'll be talking to people operating at the very edge of possibility. From athletes to actors, and from artists to entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Theo van den Broeke, and we'll be giving you the fuel you need to get in the zone and leave your limits in the dust. Watch out. This is The Edge, a podcast by TAG Heuer.
Checo, it's wonderful to have you here at The Edge. Thank you so much for joining us. So, you started racing in a go-kart when you were 6, and your brother was also a racer. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into it and whether there was much of a competition between the two of you?
Yeah, well, I started by let's say by mistake a bit. My brother was into racing, and I was the younger one, so I wanted to always follow my brother's steps, and it was pretty cool, really nice to look after my brother in that regard, because I was always looking at his races, looking at what he was doing right or wrong, and I think that really helped me, to understand and think like, okay, he's done wrong that one, he's done right this thing, and I think that really helped me to have a successful career in my early days.
Of course. And then fast forward to a few years later, of course, and you became the first Mexican driver to start an F1 race in 30 years at the 2011 Australian Grand Prix. And obviously that kind of turned you into an icon in your own country. And I know you have an enormous following and there's a lot of activity around you, particularly when you're back in Mexico. How does that feel? And how do you kind of manage it? Because it must be quite intense.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the show, let's say. I've never dreamed with it. I never dreamed with being famous or having so much support or all of that. I think my main dream was related to track. I wanted to be very successful on track, and I wanted to be the best driver in the world, and I'm still chasing my dream. But all the rest, it comes with it, and it's nice. I have to say that it's really nice, to go back home and I mean, have all the support. I'm very lucky to have that, because not many drivers get to experience that amount of support from their countries. So I'm very lucky and privileged to have that. But it comes with a price as well, like everyone knows you back home. Everyone knows where you are, what you're doing. Everyone wants to tell you how you can do better, what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. But it's part of the game. But I have to say that at the end of the day, it is a privilege, and I'm a very lucky guy to have all this.
We should probably talk about the 2021 season. Yours with Red Bull Racing. It's arguably been one of the most intense in the past few years. How has it been from your side?
Yeah, it's been very intense. The fact that we are on my first year with Red Bull Racing, fighting for the World Constructors Championship, and Max is fighting for the drivers. It's like I didn't have that process of adaptation that generally is good, for drivers to have, when the car is competitive but not winning the championship, or not like able to win the championship. And I came straight into it with no adaptation, and it's been a great challenge. It's been really intense from my side. A lot of things to learn. I think I've worked as hard as ever, in my adaptation to the team, to all my engineers. So it hasn't been easy, but we are working and we are giving our very best.
Do you find that you thrive? I mean, when I speak to other Formula One drivers and when I have for this podcast, there's this sense of thriving in adversity and in challenge and seeing that as the kind of the motor behind what they do. Are you the same as that? Do you thrive in adversity?
Yeah, I don't see it that way. I just, to go through good and bad times. And I've always think that you learn more from the bad times. And the most important thing is not to give up, and always look ahead. There's always a new opportunity. There's always a new day, and you can do better tomorrow.
Of course. I mean, one of TAG Heuer's biggest values is this idea of having the courage to push limits and to kind of strive for the best and never give up, which is obviously very fitting for racing drivers. What would you say has been the farthest you've pushed yourself in the sport, and do you still have farther to go?
I think every time there is a new challenge. Every time you face a new. This is the beauty of this sport. That it's not always the same. I've been in the sport for 11 years, and I'm still learning new ways because the sport is constantly evolving. So you are always facing new challenges, new ways of driving, new ways of communicating to your team. So I think you don't stop. It's not like, you have the experience and you know what to do and you don't have to work anymore. This sport pushes you to your absolute maximum and is not only on track, off track as well, So it's why I love and I enjoy so much Formula One because it's always a new challenge. It never gets boring. It never gets old. There's always a lot of changing involved, a lot of things you gotta learn.
So would you say that a lot of people don't enjoy change. Do you enjoy change? Is that something that you kind of revel in your life?
Yeah, well, I enjoy the fact that you always have to give you 100% when you are at the sport at this level. You can never rely and rest and no matter what situation you're in, either if let's say you have a long-term contract or you don't have a drive or you've won a lot of races or you are the previous champion or whatsoever, you always have to perform and you always have to go for the maximum every single weekend and try that perfection weekend after weekend. It's what I love the most, trying to the level that we compete in. It's great because you are competing against the very best drivers in the world and the very best teams in the world. So there's no time to rest back.
I mean, we should probably talk about one of your biggest recent successes, which was early in November. You were made the first Mexican driver to finish on the podium in your home country, which must have been an extraordinary feeling. Can you describe that moment for us?
Yeah, that was a very nice moment for myself, for my career, because I had all the people that has been with me since day one. You cannot forget the fact that at this time last year, I didn't have a drive. I would probably have ended up my career in Formula One if Red Bull didn't give me the opportunity. Just to have all my fans, my crowd, my family, all the people that have been with me since day one. Carlos Slim, my main supporter of my career since day one, gave me the trophy, so it was very, very unique, very, very special moment for both of us. It was great, but it's not enough. I want to win my home Grand Prix one day.
I'm sure it will happen. I'm really eager to kind of get inside your mind when you're preparing for a race, when you're in the race and after the race. As I said, this podcast is all about kind of discovering what happens at the edge when we push to our limits. So speaking specifically when you're preparing, generally before a big race, do you have a specific routine that you follow? Is there a kind of ritual? How do you manage your nerves?
I think I'm pretty relaxed in that regard, like because you are always different every day. You have something in your mind, or you are going through a bad moment personally, or a great moment, or you have a lot of commitments to do, or you have no commitments. So you can. I feel like there's no point on always trying to do the same thing. I always like to be able to adapt to the situation.
So you don't have like a lucky pair of pants, or you don't eat something specific in the morning before racing. So you've done very, very well, and you particularly did well in the 2 or 3 races prior to your big win in Mexico. Had you changed your strategy in some way?
No, I think I'm just getting more adapt to the car, to the team. In that regard, I think things are getting better as we speak, and I'm just learning more about the car.
For the Mexican race, how nervous were you before? Did you feel that pressure from the supporters or from internally?
I mean, yeah, you have, let's say, more pressure in your home country because you want to give the very best to them. If there is a race where you don't want to fail, it's that one. Making sure that you go through lap 1 with no incidents, but gaining positions or having a good start is not easy. It's not so easy to manage before the race. Everyone is looking at you, shouting your name, but you have to disconnect from everything, and you have to go into your zone, and don't let any noise distract you from what you gotta do.
I found it really interesting doing this podcast and talking to a lot of sports people, and there seems to be this kind of general adoption of mindfulness in the way that they approach what they do, and this kind of getting in the zone idea where you have to empty your mind of everything that's going on and really focus. Do you practice anything like that? Do you have anyone that helps you with anything like that, or is it just something that comes to you naturally?
I think it's something that comes to you naturally, and by experiencing other Mexican races, for example, like you have to, at the end of the day, the people are there to cheer you and to support you, and no matter what result you will have, they will be there. But the most important and the best way you can make them happy is to perform at your very best. And to do that, I feel like you have to disconnect, like there can be a lot of noise out there, but once you close the visor, there's zero noise. Or once you have to fully focus into it, there has to be absolutely zero noise. And it's not easy to reach. But when I look back to it, I even surprised myself, of how when I watched the race on TV and so on, it's like how I was able to disconnect from all this support, from all these people cheering me. It wasn't an easy one.
And you watch yourself back after every race, is that right?
No, not really.
No.
So, only the races good. I do well, I watch. When I do bad, I don't like watching them. I just learn from it and move on.
One of the things that, again, a lot of sports people say is they have to switch off from social media because, again, that noise can be very distracting, particularly in a lead up to an event or a race. Is that something that you do too? Yeah,
I think social media has become too much in the last couple of years, and I don't think just for sportsmen, even for normal people. I mean, the amount of time that we spend on it during a day, it's just, I think, unacceptable. So I'm not a big fan of it. I have to say that I think it's a great tool as a sportsman, to engage with your fans, with your brands, but it has to be a limit and a balance. I think it's important to make sure you control the amount of time, as well, not just as a sportsman, as a human being, to make sure you control the time you dedicate and try to minimize it.
Yeah, it's good advice for everyone, I would say. We should talk a little bit more about the race in Mexico. You were in a great position, number 4 for this race. What are you thinking at that moment before you go, or is your mind blank, or are you thinking about certain bends? What's going through your brain?
I'm thinking to try to have the best possible start I possibly can, the best reaction to the lights, and the best positioning to turn 1. To make sure I'm able to overtake. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking at the time. But it can go right, it can go wrong. But that's my thinking. And then I focus after I've gone through turn 1. Then I start to think about the race pace, because it can all of a sudden change what's happening in your race on lap 1.
I mean, there must have been key moments in that race which you can now look back on and think, that's why I managed to make it onto the podium. Are there any that you can share with us?
Well, I think the main one was to get P2 from Lewis, was to do the undercut. There was a very critical lap that I think if Mercedes didn't react to it, we would have reacted and got P2, which would have been great, for our team. But I think in general it was a good start. We had a good one, and that just helped to make the progress and have a good race. But I think P2 was so close that I mean we haven't had a 1-2 this season, and to have that one in my country would have been great.
I mean, obviously, you're the person out there on the track doing what you do, but as we all know, Formula One is a real team sport. During that race, we could hear Lewis Hamilton complaining about not being able to detach himself from you and complaining about his team. How would you describe the teamwork that went into your success in that race?
Well, my team is a big part of the result. What we do on track, off track, the preparations leading up to the races. It's a lot of work that we do and a lot of preparation that we are doing all together. So, yeah, we are a team at the end of the day. Everyone is very important. Everyone's job, it's key to our success.
I mean, I'm intrigued to know, once you've finished the race, I mean, what is the feeling? Is it an enormous sense of relief? Do you feel your body kind of letting go of the tension? Are you kind of flooded with endorphins, or are you stressed about kind of where you've come and what you've done? What's the general feeling that you have at the end of a race? But specifically that race.
Yeah, it really depends on the race. It depends.
Of course.
On that race, yeah, it's about like the lead up into it is so intense, I think we start since Tuesday, so it gets very intense. A lot of commitments, a lot of noise behind you. But once I'm able to finish the weekend, it's just like a relief, like, oh, okay, this one is done. Let's go on to the next one. So yeah, that can be a bit of a relief. But if not, if it's a bad result, then it's like, oh, my goodness. It's okay. I just have to move on. I'm racing next weekend. So, yeah, but especially Mexico, I think it's a big relief. Like I'm able to breathe differently once I cross the finish line.
Does that mean that you are constantly tightly wound throughout the entire season? I mean, given that you're racing so much and that you're kind of having to prep for new tracks constantly, do you find that you're constantly in a kind of state of preparedness?
Yeah, we are constantly preparing. As I say, the season is so intense that, I mean, we are playing a World Cup every weekend, pretty much every 15 days or so. So every race is so important, so critical, that we want to perform at our best, not just as a driver, as a team. And yeah, that's something that we're really pushing hard to do.
I'm intrigued to know how the celebrations went after your Mexican race. Did you manage to celebrate, or did you kind of have to keep a lid on it?
Uh, the main thing is that we're still on COVID days, so it wasn't so easy to to party and so on with all the people. But yeah, I managed to have a couple of drinks um, during that night because we were actually racing in Sao Paulo um, the weekend after. So yeah, couldn't let's say couldn't have a big hangover. So yeah, we had to fly the couple of days after the race into Sao Paulo. So it was like, okay, it happened, but we're looking into the next race.
Of course. So that obviously must have been a real highlight for the season thus far. Can you share any other highlights that have really stuck out for you?
Um, well, obviously winning for the first time with my team with Red Bull, getting that first victory was very nice in Baku at my sixth race with the team. That was nice, and obviously my podium at my home Grand Prix. But the main one, I really hope I'm able to bring the constructors title to the team.
I mean, you've extended your contract with Red Bull Racing. What is it that has made you want to stay? And did you expect to want to stay?
I really enjoy working with the team, to be honest, with a group of people, with the engineers, with the Red Bull culture, with the brand itself. You know, Red Bull is a huge brand, and yeah, it is a lot of work. You know, relative to what I used to in other teams. Red Bull is a massive brand, but I enjoy, and you know, I really feel great part of it. I'm working great with Max, with the race engineers, with all the team in general, and yeah, I'm. I think to me, at the stage I am in my career, the most important is I enjoy it. The time that I don't enjoy, it's the time I have to go home. You know, because I don't need anymore to be here. You know, I'm here because I fully believe that I can be a world champion, and because I enjoy working with my team. That's it, and I'm very thankful to Red Bull to extending my contract.
I'm intrigued. I mean, for those who may not know, you're saying that at Red Bull Racing, it's a lot more work than being in other teams. Can you touch on why and exactly what that kind of work entails?
Well, first of all, the brand Red Bull brand is it's you know, you have a lot of commitments. We have a lot of partners, so therefore it keeps you busy as a driver. But also on the track side, you're normally fighting for the world championship. If not, you're trying to. So off track, on track, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of demand. You are on the spotlight all the time. So that's makes it very intense compared to a team that, let's say, is not fighting for the world championship, or is not as a big brand as Red Bull is. So yeah, that makes it more challenging.
Yeah, of course. Away from the track, I've read that you have said that you would be a lawyer if you weren't a Formula One racing driver. I can't really figure out the connection between the two. What do you think it is in you that kind of would want to be a lawyer?
Well, a lawyer or a banker, you know, I think
Okay.
it shares a bit the adrenaline that we live every day into our lives. I quite like the adrenaline, and I mean, those jobs really gives you that adrenaline, certainly. But yeah, something related to sport, I'll say as well. You know, probably a lawyer that helps the sportsmen getting done their contracts, or kind of a manager. I don't know, something. I really like the life that is related to sport. You know, living with that, thinking how you can do better, how you can be better, and that's something I really like.
Your family is obviously a very big part of your life, and they often attend the races. Would you like to see your children following in your footsteps? Given that you started when you were 6, I mean, it's something that could happen.
I mean, it's a tough career, I have to say. I mean, I guess every career, to make it onto the top, you know, to get into the highest level of your sport, it takes a lot from you. But I think if my kids are willing to do it, and they're willing to give it all, and to be successful, to be very professional at a very young age, I'm more than happy to support them. I think as a dad, I had all the support from my parents, so I'll do the same for my kids. It doesn't matter for me if they want to be a Formula 1 driver or if they want to be a lawyer. I will support them in whatever they want to do, but I will push them to be their best, to make sure they give their best. I mean, if they don't have the talent to be the best, at least they have to make sure they give it all. And that for me is the most important, Sometimes you don't have the talent to make it, and it can get very frustrating. But for me, the most important is they give their all in whatever they want to do. Competition is very high these days, so I want to teach my kids to give it all in whatever they do, to make sure they are passionate about what they want to do.
Fabulous. I have two more questions before we finish. The first, looking ahead, Checo, what are your kind of biggest goals, I guess, for the rest of the season, but also for 2022?
Well, for the rest of the season, I want to bring the constructors' title home. And for next season, I want to be in the fight for the World Championship myself. We start with the new rules, with new cars. We all start from zero, so that's the main thing for me to try to get there.
And finally, looking at 6-year-old Checo starting in his go-kart, what would you say to him now? What advice would you give him?
I will just tell him, to enjoy the ride. Don't worry so much about every single bad race, every single bad moment. Just enjoy, learn from them, and make sure you are always happy. That will be my biggest advice to the young Checo, and also to never give up.
Of course. Fabulous. Checo, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us, and good luck for the rest of the season. It's been brilliant having you at the Edge.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us at The Edge, a podcast by TAG Heuer. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts. The Edge is also an online magazine. Go to magazine.tagheuer.com for more articles, interviews, and photo series that bring together our love of watches and our desire to push ourselves to the edge of our limits. I'm your host, Theo van den Broeke. Until next time, keep an eye out. This is The Edge.